Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of In the Flo podcast. I'm super stoked for my guest today, Juan Miolan, and he is a vitality coach from upstate New York. We actually met in the online space because he commented on something with women's cycles and how he uses that in his business. And so it's really important for me to find men who resonate with, this message of the holistic image of a woman. So Juan, thank you so much. I'm so happy to jam out with you today.
This is so cool. I so appreciate the invitation and being here. It's really an honor, and I can't wait to go back and forth and to vibe.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things we were just chatting about before we jumped on was being a vitality coach, and like, what is that? What does that look like? And I thought it's really amazing because in trying to like identify yourself, it's really nice to find something that's like all encompassing. And I think like vitality, you're right. Vitality is what everybody's looking for, right?
Yeah, it's like, again, what we were talking about. It took me so long to just come up with something and I think that's important, right? To self-identify and not to just go with this title or that title if it doesn't resonate with you. We talk about energy, right? And that's one of the things that we talk about and I teach about in the program in terms of that energy, that your emotional response and the two states of emotions, right? And being able to read and feel empowered or not by something, and it guides you. So like I was struggling so much with that title, like trainer, health coach, nutrition coach, performance coach, brain optimization coach. It was like energy coach. I had energy coach. I had elite energy coach. I was like, no, man, it's right there. Like, then I just like landed on vitality, and I was like, that's it. It's about that vitality and really generating as much as we can from that. And it's stuck, and it's sticking, and it's still resonating. So
Yeah,
like you
totally.
said,
And
all encompassing.
all encompassing. And it resonated with me so much. I was like, vitality. Yes. Like that's exactly. And like when you're working with people, like it's that emotion, right? It's like health. And this is something that is like so brilliant that has downloaded into me. And it's just like, it's never one thing, right? It's like, if you're working on health, you're working with energy, you're working with mental health, like everything is that bigger thing. And once we realize that as, you know, fitness trainers and as life coaches and all of these things, we can help our clients more.
Oh man, it's so true. It's looking at the human story. It's really about the human story, right? There's fundamentals, yes, there's foundational things that we all need. That's the aspect where we need to understand some of those things. We need to understand those things. But beyond that, it's okay, what works for you? Where are you going? What is your story? What do you yearn for? What's your vision? Right? And matching that up for that, regardless of what this guru says or this coach says over here. It's not about that. It's really about like you and what your vision is. And when we talk about health, there's so many different aspects of it, right? There's and you think about all the roles that life demands of you. So we have to honor that. We have to honor our spirit. We have to honor our mentality, right? We have to honor our emotions. And then we have to honor our physical being. We have to honor the sleep, the nutrition aspect of it, and the movement aspect of it, which encompasses all these things. And what I've seen is that the mindset field, when you think about mindset, is two things that kind of clash on with them. It's We're not really taught that the mind and the brain are not the same thing. That's one
Mm.
aspect of it, and it really, and it shows you when you go into those fields, in those trainings, it kind of keeps you in your head, and that's where all the noise is when you think about it. It's tough. I'm not saying that you can't come along with it, but I always teach my people to go into their heart first. With the philosophy, the brain knows no answers, the heart knows no questions, and then we can start doing things from there. And then on the other aspect of it is, um, it it negates the sleep, nutrition, and movement part of it, which nourishes the brain, which is like the antenna for accessing mind. So that's a big thing that I see that the mindset field misses, right? And then go on the other aspect of things on the health side, it's like it's usually about exercise. or it's usually about exercise and eating. But we miss the mindset aspect. We miss the mind and how the mind influences everything. And when they touch on it, a lot of times it's superficial, right? It's like, you got to be disciplined, right? You got to want it. It's like, okay, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what are you talking? What are thoughts? What are emotions? What are they? Like, let's go deeper into those weeds, because that's what's really going to align your nutritional protocol, your movement protocol, your sleep. And like, we've all been there in those cycles. The program, we hop in, hop off, in this routine, that doesn't work, and here, and then we feel broken. I want people to understand that they're not broken, that there's a system that's running inside of them that like almost nobody is paying attention to. And this is why I love to connect with individuals like yourself and talk about the integration and the holistic aspect of it, and get that system that is the human operating system, right? Because this is all integrated and it needs to be honored. And that holistic approach is not, I don't look at it as a next level approach. I look at it as the only approach. If you're not being served holistically, there's a disservice, period.
For sure. And the thing, like, so many little bombs in there that I'm just like, okay, taking it all in. But like, everything that we do, we have to first cultivate trust. And that trust, right? Like, no matter what we're trying to do in our life, like, we have to cultivate the trust with ourselves. And that comes with, for me, like, everybody uses different language, but for me, that's understanding that, right, you're not the chatter in your mind. You're the one who watches or who hears the chatter, right? Where it's like, so being, and there's like this book called The Untethered Soul. I don't know if you've ever read it, but it talks about like your inner roommate, and like your inner roommate being like, the talking that you hear all the time, and you're the one who's hearing the talking. And so being able to, for me to like picture that, identifies kind of this idea of like, we have to get these foundational pieces of awareness down in order for us to make and achieve the health goals or this other goal that we have, because these pieces are us. And, and it's like, we have to love all of it without getting caught up in it too much, if that makes sense.
Yes. That's so on point. That is so on point. And it brings up the point of, you talked about the inner chatter is not us, right? So I like to say also that going along with that, our thoughts are not our thoughts, and going into now I'm going to use a big, like, fancy term that's used. It's the psychocybernetic loop, right? The psychocybernetic loop. I just say the loop, because that's a mouthful to keep on saying all the time. Right? So the loop. And we talk about the loop, we have the belief system, the beliefs that we hold. And most of them haven't come through our own doing, right? By the way nature is designed, in this beautiful design that nature has, because it's you want to come in here and you want to survive, right? But by nature, everyone that's around you has survived. So it makes sense for you to take in their belief systems, right? It just makes sense. Because I got pissed off at nature. And there was a point where I was like, why would you do this, right? Why would you let us get all these beliefs into our being and it doesn't resonate with our higher selves, right? What we came here to do. And that doesn't get anywhere, right? That animosity. Right? So when I was thinking about that a little bit deeper, I was like, oh my God, that's beautiful. It's amazing when you think about it, because it's like, okay, we need to survive. And by nature, if someone is around you, they survive. So it makes sense for your brain to take in, however effed up it might be, to take some of that in. So going to the thoughts not being your thoughts, in that loop, your belief, you can't have a thought that is not attached to a certain belief. Right? So if you have certain thoughts, there's a belief attached to that inner chatter that you have, right? Now, if we can understand that, since most of our beliefs aren't our beliefs, then that makes sense to understand that most of your thoughts are not your thoughts. And what we have problems with is this organ that we have called the brain, this beautiful, sophisticated organ, right? When it goes and receives these thoughts, we have a difficult time detaching, like you said, being the observer. We identify with those thoughts. If we have a bruise on our arm or something hurts on our arm in our body, we're not like, oh, I'm this hurt. We're like, oh, my side hurts. This is not me. I know this is not my natural state. But when it's the brain and we have these thoughts that really keep us contracted, we identify with those thoughts as us being us. And when we can understand a little bit of that, hey, it's not you, right? And showing you that it's not like a airy fairy, just positivity and like spiritually bypassing it, but let's understand how the system works. And since you have these beliefs that you had no filter on, they made their way into you, and you have these thoughts based on those beliefs, and those beliefs aren't yours. And now you can look at them like, oh shit, these thoughts aren't mine.
Right.
Like that inner chatter, and it's such a beautiful point to get to, because now you can become the observer. And that's essentially what meditation is, right? And if we can have more of that peace and observe throughout our lives, man, how much less of a triggering thing would that be when life comes into play? And that then we get into the emotional aspect of it. That's a whole different thing. But it's such a beautiful notion.
It is. It's so powerful, and it changes everything. It changes everything from you being, like even like the victim of your story or whatever to, oh, wow, it's like you're reborn again, right? Like that's what the spiritual awakening for me came when I was like, oh shit, like all of these things that I thought I knew or thought I believed were just programs that were essentially downloaded into this beautiful brain of mine.
Mhm.
But I actually have choice, and I actually have the ability to reassess everything and build a new foundation, and then consistently then go and observe and observe and observe and observe and observe. And you're right, once you become the observer, once you really can be the observer of yourself, be the observer of others, you're way less triggered. Like you can live such a peaceful life because it's not like everything's coming at you. It's like, okay, cool. I can see what's being experienced from that experience. From that person's experience, I can see what's being experienced from my experience, and detaching from, well, this means I'm worthier. This doesn't mean I'm worthier or anything like that, right? That allows us to just be like, okay, it's okay. I can see this, I can observe it, I can learn from it, right? Like, what is this here to teach me? That's the one question that I ask myself all the time. Like every time I feel any kind of emotion, I allow it, I open to it, and I ask, like, what are you here to teach me, guilt? What are you here to teach me, anger? Like, it's not like anger's bad or guilt is bad. And I'm not like, go away. I'm like, what's up, buddy? like, what are you here for today? Like, what are you doing, man? And like that in itself has changed the trajectory of my life for sure.
And I think that's a huge point, because what you just talked about is something that I think a lot of people confuse in terms of that the spirituality journey. And again, someone that contends with a lot of like conventional thinking, right? Where it's just like, I don't really rock with that, a lot of times when a lot of people go on to this, think about that spiritual journey or spiritual teachings, they might feel like they have to repress that anger or that guilt, right? Like it's I shouldn't be feeling this, right? And we've all been there at some point in some way. But when you look at it, and let's oversimplify it, right? The spiritual journey is for you to discover more of yourself. And if emotions are messengers and they're here to teach you, by repressing any of them or ignoring any of them, you're actually going against the real essence of spirituality, right? So it's if we have some of that guilt or anger, and understanding what is this here to show me or to teach me, and an understanding that, man, like guilt and shame are actually good in a way where we come down here and we learn through contrast, right? A lot of times we don't know what we want, right? So we learn through contrast, and we can get deeper into that in terms of like creation and wanting to know, and source wanting to know itself, and divide all of these things. But if you have shame or guilt about something, it actually highlights, okay, maybe you were on the end of the spectrum of how you wanted to show up. So now if you showed up in a certain way, you have a little shame or guilt on that. Now we can look to the other side. Say, okay, then how do you want to show up? Right? So now it makes it a little bit clearer. The only thing is that we 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 have this tendency to live in that shame or guilt, right? We don't use it as a reference, we use it as resonance. And that's when
Mm.
we start going into that spiral down, and it's like, oh, this is bad. I'm feeling, I'm just in that state. But it's like, no, no, no. Like, it's good that you feel this, right? You have a spectrum, a continuum of emotions, but what is it showing you? And now, once you have that curiosity and that wonder, you're getting out of that lower vibration and into neutrality. And then there's the
Yeah.
other aspect of gratitude. A lot of people try to go from that lower vibration to gratitude, and gratitude is a very high vibration. It's good. I mean, but that jump is a huge jump. So I like to look at it as sometimes get into the pseudo gratitude, where I'm like, oh, I know I'm doing this, and I know I should be grateful, and now as a should be grateful, and now you're guilty for not being grateful about something that you know you should be, and it just goes back into that. I was like, nah, you don't have to feel grateful right now. Just think about, like, be curious about what you're feeling, and now get you into a state of neutrality. And
Mm.
now, when you feel more of nothing and you can step into nothingness, you become anything. And that's that ironic aspect of this human experience, right? It's just like nothing become everything. How the hell does that happen, right? But
That's
it's so
so good.
cool. It's such a wonderment with that, and it's truly profound, right?
Yeah, that is so good. And I love that because we do tend to, hear like, okay, well, in this, it could be worse. It could be worse. We hear people say that a lot. Like, it could be worse, and I should be thankful. And I try to take the word should and try completely out of my vocabulary, right? Like, they're just two things that I'm just like, why would I, I'm either gonna do it and I'm okay with where I am. But that saying also, like, what we resist persists.
Yes.
And so, and one of the things that I do, just like a little tidbit that I'll do with my clients, and this has really worked well with like grief, sadness, anything, where I'm just like, sit down, set a timer, and feel it, and give it space. All this, set a timer for 5 minutes, and then just get mad or get really sad or write a letter to it, anything that you can, but don't push it away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make it go away. Give it its space. And that's what we tend to do as humans, is we just brush it off. We brush it off and we keep going with our day. Well, we have to do this. We have to pick up our kids. We have to do this. And we have to, we have all these things we have to do today. So this just residual greed, residual anger, residual whatever is just chilling on our back while we're just trying to get through the day. And then we just keep going in this cycle without, and it just is like, it's just kind of like attached to us. And then when we talk about energy, right, we're just talking about, like, imagine like all of these emotions that we as humans carry around because we don't give them space.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we transmute it? That is our job as humans. Our job is to transmute and uplift ourselves, in a way that can actually help ourselves and those around us. And so it's like, we're not helping anybody by pushing things away and not holding space for them. We're actually, we're abandoning ourselves in a way. But right, we don't need to create more guilt around that idea either, right? But we're just kind of like, we just need to come home and say, what's here for me? Like, I'm here for it, whatever it is.
I love that it's calling a spade, right? So it's like, I love the way that you just put that and said we're abandoning ourselves, because that's essentially what it is, right? And they never go anywhere really. They're sitting there and they're like looking. They're like, grateful for the opportunity. Where's that trigger coming into? And then boom, okay. You're like, what's that, right? So it's, if you don't take care of your emotions, they're gonna take care of you. They're gonna overwhelm you. And I've seen it. I've seen it happen, right? They're going to overwhelm you because they live in your tissues. They live in the DNA. That's why you get activated, right? There's this activation when something happens and you just get this remembrance. And it happens on the other side too, about blissful things and love and all these other things as well. But I said we're not taught how to understand emotions and what to do with them. Our brain gives pain to our body, The brain doesn't, it's almost surreal how this science and the body works and the spirituality actually, the science backs up the spirituality aspect of an ancient wisdom, right? When you look at the brain doesn't have nerve endings, right? Pain receptors. So it's like you can, a surgeon can do brain surgery while someone's wide awake. So the brain doesn't feel pain, the body feels pain. So it gives that pain to the body. It's a pain body, you know? And when something comes up, you talk about transmuting that energy, we're alchemists. We're all alchemists, right? And it's whether we want to step into that power and really realize that we're alchemists or not. And that's the driving force between like taking that powerful step into actualizing our vision or not, and staying in our comfort zone. And that's something that I contend with again. Like the comfort zone is not so comfortable when you look. So we have to change that label, right? That safe
You're
zone,
so right.
you know, that safe zone doesn't feel safe. It's not peace. When you're safe, you're at peace. So we have to change that whole label around when we talk about comfort zone, because man, that shit is not comfortable. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It isn't. And really where your peace lies is expanding and being uncomfortable. So you're either uncomfortable in a way that you're constricted, or you're uncomfortable in a way that you're expanding. And that's where you feel fulfillment. That's where fulfillment lives, you know, as you're expanding, as you're going. And the shiny object I like to talk about is sleep and energy levels, right? Because when we talk about, okay, what do you do, right? You don't want to have like this whole book about what you do. So like, hey, I help individuals with their sleep and energy, right? And of course with their body, because we all want to look better naked. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
What's up?
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But it starts with sleep, and how I like to address sleep is it's the number one thing we need for sleep is peace. We look at evolutionarily speaking from a biological standpoint, we need peace. From a spiritual standpoint, we need peace. There's all these other strategies you can do, yes, but let's get to that peace. Like, there's a reason why you're disrupted. You know, our body can't run, can't fight, can't cook, can't love, can't sex, can't do anything while we're sleeping. So it makes sense that you better feel that peace. And since we're no longer out there in the wilderness, what takes our peace is that conversation that you felt like you should have had with someone, right? The bills that's coming in and the emotion that it stirs up. You know, that argument that you had with your significant other or someone dear to you, right? The thing that maybe you forgot to say or forgot to mention, or you forgot to connect with someone that passed away, right? That grief, you talk about that grief, right? There's all these things that are so much deeper when we talk about sleep. And of course, sleep equals energy. You can't have that, right? And movement and all these other things with that. And we all know how our mood is when we sleep, right? The emotional agility is out the window when we're not careful about our sleep. So that's the shiny object, but there's so much more into that.
Yeah. So like, what is the one thing that you kind of, when you're working on increasing like restful sleep and peace during sleep, like what's the main thing that you target with your clients that you really are like, here's the number 1, 2, right? We've talked about all the foundational things, but like, what are the main kind of aspects that you look at in order to make somebody's, you know, sleep and then energy better?
Oh man, good question. So people are so individual. But my methodology is we'll always look at like your vision, the spirit, right? The spirit, the mind, in terms of your thoughts, right? The loop, right? The emotional agility. Then we go into the physical. And it's never linear. And I think if there's any coaches, if it's any,
you're speaking my language. Like everything you're saying today, I'm just like, yes, 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 yes.
If there are any coaches listening, and you know you have your methodology and you're trying to nail down and you're working with human beings, please understand that it's not linear. It's not going to be, we're going to do this today and then here, next session is going to be here, next session is going to be here, right? They're always going to tell you what they need, you know, and there's going to be fundamental pieces. Focus on the fundamentals that you believe, but always be ready to hear them and create that space for them. And then as you're hearing them, be able to go back into your knowledge and trust yourself. You talk about trusting yourself. And I think that's such a big part of the process, is really trusting ourselves. And as you're connecting with them, go back and trust yourself, trust your knowledge that you acquired in your experience. Be like, oh, okay, this is what they need right now. from this methodology, you know. So when we go into the first thing that I do, more often than not is going into getting them to tap into their heart, right? Like,
Mm.
hey, what does that look like for you? Because you probably know this, you probably experienced this, right? When we're talking to individuals, it's like, okay, we're doing this work together. Where do you want to go? Like, what's your vision, right? And a lot of people say a little bit of their vision and then immediately go into what they don't want. I don't want this to happen. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. And I'm like, okay, and I stop them. I go, all right, that's a whole different conversation. You just told me everything that you don't want. And they realize that. And I'm like, this is a law of the universe. There's a law of nature. What you're doing is you're focusing on the things that you don't want. You're resonating with that, right? And what you said, what you resist persists. What you focus on expands. What you put attention to, you give life to. So you're not even giving life to this higher you, you know? So that's where I go to them, but I can see their wheels turning and they're trying to describe. And I go, and I want you to get out of your head and into your heart, right? And then they go, oh, okay. Because we're dealing with high achievers, right? We're dealing with people that are heart-centered. They want to do more. They're not in the victim mentality, right? They want to do great things. They're overachievers, so they're stuck in here, and like they'll even go through an exercise and describe all the things. Like, okay, that's good. They're like, what are you feeling? You describe everything to me, but what are you feeling, right? Because we know feeling is the language of the universe. When
Totally.
we get into it. So that's where I start with them, and getting them to shift that paradigm, and then everything you're able to let it flow. Their genius is there. Like, we don't do the genius is there. It's just to remove that block so the natural genius of you can flow effortlessly.
100%. I always say, I say to my partner and my clients, everything, I'm like, don't think about it, feel about it. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, everybody's like, oh, let me think about it for a little bit and I'll get back to you. I'm like, don't think about it. I don't want you to think about it. Yeah. I want you to feel about it, because the heart resonance, right? Like the frequency of the heart is just, I mean, that's our center. That is where we have to go to like really understand who we are and all of these decisions that we're making. So I love that that is your foundation. And I love that, you know, it's like when we do talk about sleep and energy, what do we always come back to? We always come back to, you know, what is that foundation for you? Where are you, you know, getting stuck in these thought patterns? Where are you needing to just refocus your energy onto what you do want? And it's funny because I think, like, even for me, right? And I think this is a human experience, and I'm very transparent with all of my clients. And it's always like, you know, there's times when I'll just notice that I'm just like, wow, I just spent all day focused on what I don't want. And I teach this shit. But it's like, because we can get stuck in these thought loops, in these old patterns, but we can come back quicker with all of this awareness, with all of this knowledge. And what I really love too, right there, is that I'm willing to open and say that, you know, I notice days when I'll do this and I don't feel bad about that, right? It's not about me creating guilt around not having it right, you know. And I think, again, for high achieving people, you know, in this world, that's the thing that, you know, really to key in on. It's like, you're a high achieving person and you need to be nice to yourself about it, you know? And you're not perfect, and you're not going to be. You're perfectly exactly as you are and where you are. All that matters is that we're learning from everything that we're experiencing, and we're utilizing that, and we're moving forward, you know, and we're moving forward in who we, into our higher self, into who we desire to be.
I love what you said there in terms of, like, when you go into it on yourself. I like to say, I eat what I cook, right? I eat what I cook. Like, I am my student as well. Like, these things that I go through and I teach, like, I use, and I tell people, like, I'm not different than you. I go through, I used to work with more of a anxiety, right? And anxiety is part of that as well. It's like, it's not that I never go through anxiety. It's not that I'm never confused. It's not that I'm never off my path. On the other end of it, like, I feel like that happens to me a little bit too much, right? So as it's one thing, like, as you are growing, your mind, your access to mind is expanding. So if it's expanding, right, you're going to get confused more, because confusion and order go on hand in hand. Confusion, understanding go hand in hand. Confusion like the preface to understand, to a higher understanding, and getting that relationship with confusion is like, oh, okay. I'm not saying, oh, yes, I'm confused. Yes, right. It's still like, I don't like being confused. Still, right. It's not like I'm saying, oh my God, I'm confused. I'm anxious. Yes, this is great. I don't want other people to take that. It's just like, oh man, like, okay, I'm confused. Like, what am I gonna do? What is this? I'm feeling a little anxiety, but knowing that sensation is because I am challenging, and my being is demanding that I have a higher understanding of something. Because if it was already in my understanding, in my bubble of knowledge, I wouldn't be confused. I would know what to do. So by definition, your confusion is just asking you're about to gain a higher understanding of something. And that's a beautiful process. That's a beautiful thing, because you're expanding, right? And I'm not saying be joyous when you're confused, but understand what that is preceding, and it's just about not staying, you said this, it's just about not staying in that confusion and that anxiety for a long period of time, right? It's instead of being there for days, weeks, months, years, that really take your energy and really kind of take that flame away from you. You can now spend maybe a day, maybe hours, right? If it really rocks you, but you go from months, and people's been in it for years, right, to max like a day if it's very hard, right? Or now some hours or minutes, and that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
just amazing with that.
I feel like this is a total moment for everybody to just breathe in. And if you are somebody listening and you're feeling confusion, like that just hit me right in the feels. If you're feeling that feeling of confusion, you're expanding. That's so good, because it's brilliant. Because if we are feeling, nobody's sure all the time, but maybe we feel like we should be, because if we're on this journey, then we should know, and we're not listening to our intuition and we're doing it wrong. And, all of these negative talks kind of come in, but that's brilliant, because you're right. The mind is expanding. And yeah, honestly, it's so many mic drops with you, Juan. Like, I'm just like, please. I want to sit down here and just keep writing and writing and writing and writing. One of the things that was really, really good that we talked about just prior to hopping on this, and I was like, let's remember this, is about how spirituality and kind of like this, new era that we're in is different than it used to be, right? And how the one thing that you said that I was just like, this is just a golden nugget that everybody needs to hear, is that like how we just need to be integrated. We have to integrate our learning and our experience into this new earth, into this new experience, as a human being on this journey. I loved that you said that.
It's so needed, and so it's how we operate. Like, we just like, things aren't independent of one another. So we have to come with a model that's integrated, a model that is holistic, right? Like we were talking about before, it's not the next level, it's the only level. And it's not, if you don't have a holistic approach, or you're not working with someone that has a holistic approach, or has a team for you, or has people for you, because not everyone has to be about everything, right? But a team for you that takes a holistic approach to things, then in my eyes, it's a disservice, because it's you, the human being, in your story, in its whole. And for example, is like, I contend with the nutrition aspect of things. Here we go, right? The contention. And a lot of my colleagues in the nutrition field, nutrition coaches or nutritionists, like, no disrespect, but let's look at what nutrition is on a deeper level. It's not just for weight loss, right? And we don't eat for nutrition. We eat food. Like, we eat food. We're not like, oh, is this nutrition? It's like, oh, nutrition. Like, we eat food, and food has an intimate tie with our experience in this world. It's always been present in our lives. So if something has always been present, you're going to have a neural association with something. So now we're getting into the mind when we talk about nutrition, right? And now if you have a neural association with something and you're trying to, and you say you grew up with this dish, and now you came to the conscious conclusion that this dish is not really healthy for you, and you're trying to get rid of that dish, or you're trying to get rid of a certain food that's always been there, and now you're trying to get rid of it, but like you're having trouble because consciously you understand you're trying to sever yourself from that. Subconsciously, what happens is that our subconscious doesn't speak in language, it speaks in feeling and symbols. So that thing, that nutrition, that food that you're trying to sever yourself from, if you haven't done the deeper work and realizing what does this food mean to you, not whether it's healthy or not, what does it actually mean to you? What part did it play in your world, right? And since it was you growing up and always been a part of you, it could mean family, it could mean love, it could mean comfort, it could mean safety, right? Depending on trauma, depending on how your family dynamic is, right? Depending on if you had breakups and they were hard on you and you went to this. Now this is like love, safety, community, and all these things. So you're not getting rid of this like apple pie or chocolate dessert, right? You're getting rid, their subconscious saying they're trying to get rid of safety, love, community, right? And these are things that I actually need. So this is something that we talk about self-sabotage. Your subconscious is never going to let you do something that harms you, right? At least in the belief system you're tied into, you believe that it's been accepted as a belief. It's not going to let you do something that harms. So if you take away comfort or safety, that's harmful, right? So in that line, we have to look at that first when it comes to something as simple as nutrition or food. It goes
so good,
right? It goes so much deeper.
so good. And that, wow, that just clicked for me. I just had like, oh shit, yeah, like that's so good. And think about, you know, and I know men and women alike, right? But like how many humans just suffer or struggle with like food and like making these choices, right? Of like, what are, you know, and to see and to really understand the even subconscious programming that we have behind that. Like, and yeah, I'm just blown away there. That's brilliant. That's like, I've never even thought about it that way. And I've done a lot of work. So I'm just kind of like taking it all in. That's great. That's brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, it's such a it's such like a nuance.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. It's such a powerful thing. Food is powerful. Food is
it's so brilliant too, because it's like, you know, when you work with powerful people like you, right? And I can feel your power. I really can. Like just even just this conversation and everything, like you are a very powerful creator. And, you know, you just get into these awarenesses. And it's not about, you know, somebody, you know, one of my coaches once said, like, you know, when you invest in yourself, right? It is about what you start with and where you get to. But there's going to be 1 to 3 things that person will say to you that will change your life forever.
Yeah.
Pay attention for those 1 to 3 things, because that is where the magic happens. Because what we're doing is like, even right now, right? Like I'm opening up my heart and my mind to be in your energy field of knowledge and experience that. And I'm just like, pew, pew, pew. And when we are these open-minded humans and we're looking for growth and we're willing to take in all of this new information and really chew on it, like you can grow so fast. You just yes. Keep going and going and going.
and it's that essence of allowance, going on what you're saying. And I appreciate the words coming my way. And it's just I love connecting with powerful creators, heart-centered, intelligent, heart-centered individuals, right? It's all about the heart center for me, because there's been atrocities done with very intelligent people, you know, but when you come from the heart center, when you come from the heart, and yes, intellect is very important, right? But when we connect them both, something magical happens. And I feel as we're on this journey, we can connect with more individuals like that. Now is the time, right? Where that energy and that consciousness is just takes care of itself, right?
For sure.
Um, and as a coach, you don't know what those words are going to be, right? You just teach, you just go. And a lot of those things that because we're so in done the work and in tune with some of our what we talk about, we don't think that that's going to be like the gem for someone. For example, like exactly what you talked about is one of the things that changed one of my clients in the mastermind that I did was discipline is love, right? Because we had all these negative associations with discipline, right? You got to be disciplined, you got to be disciplined, and people come to me all the time. I wish I was more disciplined. Like, let's look at what your subconscious thinks about discipline, right? Because you're trying to be something that your subconscious says is not. Oh, it's not that, right? So I love being like the student of lexicon, right? What do words truly mean? Because they've been diluted over time, and like the root words, like discipline is the disciple, right? Like you first have to understand yourself equals like love yourself, have compassion for yourself to understand what you truly want to do. What is it? Learn more about you. Then as you learn more about you, that discipline, that routine comes easy. From the outside looking in, you're disciplined as fuck, right? AF. Disciplined as AF, right? You're so disciplined, but for you, it's like there's no other way of me being, right? Who else would I be? Because I got to know me so much. And another one of those things was I'm loyal to principles, not people. And this goes into boundaries, right? And this really made it for someone, and he expressed what it meant for him, because one of the big things that scares us is that we're going to leave the people that we love behind, right? One of the things that we struggle with is, as I go to my next level, I cannot bring, this is the realization that they have, like, man, I cannot bring everybody that I love with me, right? Everybody that's tethered to these old identity that I have and that I love dearly and that loves me, but don't have that vision that I have, or are not on that trajectory. It's maybe not their time, maybe it won't ever be their time, but man, I can't bring them along. I want to bring them along. I want to bring them along so much, and we hold on to that, and we stay contracted, right? But it's just like, when you understand, hey, you're being loyal to people, and people can be here all over the place, but your principles that you set, that vision that you set, you get loyal to that, and then you'll start seeing your tribe, and some people that you love might actually start coming with you, because you're going to be that example, right? And you're gonna be like, oh my God, this is beautiful. All right, most won't. Let's get that understood. Most probably won't. But some will see that, and then you'll start to attract some of your tribe, because you're resonating, right? You're resonating with that. We talk about the heart and being that center of resonance. And for the people that are super, about the numbers and about facts, we know this from science. Look into Heart Math Institute, right? There's a reason why the heart's energy signature in terms of magnetic signature, I should say, is over 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. Over 5,000 times, right? That magnetic resonance. Now, when we talk about electrical strength, it's 40 to 60 times the strength of the brain, right? The electrical signature. So when we talk about electrical and that magnetic power, that comes from the center, that comes from the heart, with that. So we have to honor that. It's not just a woo-woo statement anymore, right? It's hard facts. The science is there to see it, to prove it with that. And that's one of the big things when it comes to the boundaries, where we try to hold on to past aspects of ourselves, and we stop the healing. We block the healing, and the healing is the first step into ascending. There's so much into that. I mean, we could probably talk all day.
Seriously, I was just thinking,
I just have to stop myself just right there.
It's so good though. Yeah, you're right. And just even going back a little further, I love what you said about heart-centered. That is the magic, being a heart-centered leader, right? If you're not a heart-centered leader, that's where the magic is connecting that with the intellect. And I'm like, this is my jam when it comes to, like, everybody's like, so, who's your ideal client? I'm like, somebody who's heart-centered. Like, that's my number one, like, thing that's necessary, you know. It's like, I mean, you have to be rooted, you know, in unity, heart-centered consciousness, being able, and also something else that you said, just to kind of reflect, is you're right. Like, now is the time. Now is, you know, I think that we have been moving through one of the greatest contractions, you know, for our lifetime. And we're moving up and out. And we get to really decide, you get to decide, the listener, you know, you and I really get to decide, how are we going to show up in this, you know, and attaching ourselves to principles, right?
Yeah.
And that's something too, like, another, like, just little tidbit. Here's something that you can do. Get off this podcast, sit down, write down. What are your principles? What are your core values? What are the things that are non-negotiable for you? And how are you doing with that? You know? And how are you doing with that?
That self-check and congruency is about being congruent and living that fulfilled life. You know, it's every step. It's about, okay, how aligned is it to how I view myself? Who am I being? I can look at myself in the mirror and be like, I love that man in the mirror. I know that man in the mirror. I've always wanted to be the man that's looking right back at me, right? And I'm nowhere near where I want to be. Like, nowhere near, right? If my goal is on the top of my head, I'm at the tip of my pinky toenail, right? But I can say, like, I feel fulfilled because talk about the fruit of the labor, right? You want to experience the fruit of the labor. And it's one of those things where I was looking at and I was like, oh shit, right? The fruit of the labor is in the labor, right? It's not the destination for us. We're creative beings, right? So the fruit is really who you're becoming while you're doing this labor to get to that destination. And it's who you bring to that destination. Because once you get to the goal, it's like, okay, go, I did it, got it. Okay, what's next?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that because we're ever expanding. We're energetic. We're natural beings. We're part of nature. Everything in nature, you look outside, expands and grows. We're no different, right? It's like we're wired for fear. And this is one other thing that I contend with in terms of what's proposed to us. We are wired for fear, right? It's a survival aspect of it. But you know what? We're wired to expand as well. That's why we die sooner when we're not growing, we're not learning. We have this dichotomy, like this dichotomous kind of system where wired for fear, stay safe, but like wired to grow and feel safe and feel at peace, right? How and it's about learning what that is for you. But that fruit of the labor is really the labor itself. I use sex, right? And we talk about, like, if you have this, like, this experience with the sexual experience, right? The aspect of it is not just the climax, right? So if you go into it 10 seconds in, you climax, you did it. Okay, that wasn't the purpose, right? That was not the purpose. It's about having an experience, right? With that, it's about the experience and with whoever partner that you choose to step into that with, you know, and it goes with, because it's a creative process. The same thing with us in our journey, you know, that the fruit is in the process itself, you know, and being able to step back and observe and see how we're growing. And when you say write down those principles, this is one thing that I use as well. It's such a powerful tool because it also helps with that emotional hijacking. It's so powerful.
It's super powerful. And I love what you said there, because this is like, I actually had a conversation with a client the other day that was like, we were talking about the heart and the mind resonance, right? Like how our heart has to be in alignment with our thoughts in order for us to really bring into our reality what we desire, right? Like that, if your mind's there and your heart's not, you know, there was a study actually, and I heard this in Joe Dispenza's book, where they took DNA. Have you ever heard this study where, like, they took DNA and in the study they made them think about wanting to change it, and it didn't change it. And then they were like, feel about wanting to change it, and it didn't change it. And then they sat down and they said, okay, I want you to match your thoughts and your heart. And it actually changed the DNA with their thoughts and their heart. Like, this is like a scientific study. So anyway, so this idea of like matching our mind and our heart with where we want to go. And so she's like, so you're kind of telling me that, like, I'm always going to want more. I'm never going to be satisfied. And I was like, no. I mean, the journey is about always being satisfied.
Right. Yes.
always being satisfied, while also looking to the future with a vision without expectation of how, right? Or like, it's like being able to make these moves towards what we want while also being in deep devotion to who we're being, not what we're doing. If we're being that person that we desire to be, then our doing just happens. We just get there through who we're being. When we're connected to what we desire in our heart and in our mind, and we connect that and we put it out into the world, everything just kind of happens. And then you're like, whoa, how did this really just kind of happen for me? And you're just like, because it's matching. Your mind and your heart are matching, while you're also having deep satisfaction and fulfillment for the labor and the love of the right now, and being exactly where we're supposed to be.
Oh man, I love that you said the heart and brain connection, the coherence there. That's harmony. When it's not in alignment, that's called dis-ease, right? There's noise. It's a dis-ease with that. And I think high achievers, especially entrepreneurs, and I get in this as well, you want to know the how. It's okay. How am I gonna do that? And it's like, just make the damn decision. It's in the power of decision, being able to understand, okay, what's the root meaning of decision? What is it to decide? What is the decision? And we look at it, incision is to cut in, a decision is to cut out. And you don't have an energy problem. Most likely you have an energy distribution problem. You're spreading yourself all these things because you have all these options. You didn't make a decision. You didn't cut out, 99 doors, you choose one, you cut out 98. And we're trying to be here. Make a damn decision with your access to mind, right? With your brain, because the brain is a goal achieving machine, right? Get the command from your heart, connect all of those, set the destination, and then watch the magic happen, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's a life force. It's when you plant a seed, you don't try to figure out, okay, how's it gonna break and go through it? Like, we don't freaking know what it's do. You put the intention down, you let life force take its happening, right? You let it do what it does. We're no different. It functions through us. I like to say that intention is the seed to creation. Attention is what nurtures it. Right? A lot of people have that intention initially, put the seed in the ground and don't nurture it. They don't pay attention to it. So when you, like what you said, when you write down those principles and revisit them, read them every day, it'll take like 5 seconds, 10 seconds. You know what I mean? You don't even have to write them every day. Write them once. Dedicate that time, right? Write it once. Really give yourself like 10 minutes to think about it. And it's not written in stone. We're dynamic. Anytime something forces you to be static, it's not for you, right? Because you're dynamic. So these principles might change. You might get a clearer insight, a clearer download, like, oh no, I'm about this, or you can add to it. Give yourself that space, but that intention is huge. And then, but that attention with it, it's integrated. You can't have one without the other. You have to put these together. We have to water the root system, and you are the most important area in your life, because you give life to everything that you love. Everything that you love, you water. And we get stuck in the habit of polishing leaves, right? Making them look nice. These are the areas in our life, right? We got to take care of this. We got to take care. People pleasing is a big one, right? We got to take care of this. I got you, right? And it'll look nice for some time, like, oh, I got it, like I'm balanced, right? It's like got everything going on. But you could keep doing it, and you're doing the same thing, and then what you're gonna see is they're gonna start crumbling, right? They're gonna start withering away because you didn't do the one thing that they needed you to do: water the root, right? Water you, take care of you, and when you do that, everything takes care of itself, and that's simple. It's that simple.
So, yeah. And you know what, that we're gonna cap on that, because I think that through everything that we've kind of went through and talked about, and there's so many nuggets of goodness in this episode, but yeah, keep it simple and take care of yourself. And with that being said, Juan, Thank you so much. Anybody who's listening, Juan's information will be in the show notes. Work with him. Hello. He is amazing. Obviously, so full of knowledge, holistic vitality coach. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, this was so much fun. Anish, we just vibe and connected right away. I
So
so
good.
appreciate being here with you, and it's just an honor being here and vibing with you. This was so, with a hectic day that we were talking about as we got on the call. Such a hectic. That's a discussion for another time. That's some tea time talk. But it really was amazing, and such a dope way to cap the night over here on the East Coast. Thank you so much.
So good.